Hi, Ida here. I come prepared with hot chocolate today because I think this is going to be a rather long video. I also have notes because there's a lot of things I want to say. Uh, and memorizing it all just seemed incredibly daunting. Um, but today is day number 5. Did I have chocolate on my hand? No, I did not. Day number 5, or at least video number 5, of the 7 Days 7 Viewers tag for me. And today is Which Court Card Are You by Ozark Oracle. Uh, and this was a tag I really enjoyed doing. It was a challenge for me. I've noticed that a lot of more experienced tarotists, at least a lot of them, have this thing where they identify with a certain court card. I haven't got to that point in my tarot journey yet, at least not before I did this tag. So I actually had to spend quite a lot of time thinking about this. I had to go through all the cards, all the court cards again, which was good. It was good to get that opportunity because I have been struggling, like so many others, with the court cards. I don't know, I just never mind, forget that was irrelevant. So anyway, as I said, it was a challenge because when you don't have enough knowledge of the cards to know immediately, like, oh, I'm that card, you have to sort of think and go through every card and see which one is the best fit. And the thing is that because we're all complex personalities, we all have personality traits from more than one course card. So we can usually relate one way or the other to several, if not all, the court card, although we might not feel that they sort of encapsulate us as whole persons. So I had to go through that whole process to sort of find the one. And now I realized I was supposed to show you the cards. I forgot to take them with me, so I'm going to go and get them. Okay, so now I have the cards. Because what I discovered was that I am a rather sort of pagey person. This is the Klimt tarot that I talked about on my first video in the 7 Day 7 tags. 7 Day 7 VR tag. Because I am rather I like new ideas. I like to try new things. I'm a perpetual student. I am very thirsty for knowledge. I'm very curious. I have this sort of sense of wonder at the world in general. I get very enthusiastic about new things, about exploring, and I get all this inspiration for a lot of new projects, and I'm a bit of a free spirit. I'm very imaginative, but I don't necessarily take it further than that. I tend to gather knowledge about things just for the joy of knowing, and I might have all these new ideas just because I enjoy to toy around with new ideas. I might not necessarily use them for any practical purpose. I might not move on and try to manifest them in any way. So that's sort of my pagey side. But there are also some things I do relate quite a lot to these two guys too. This is the Knight of Swords and the Knight of Wands. And what I was about to start saying was that there are also these times where I find something new that I get very passionate about, and I sort of start on this mission to make it manifest or to bring it out into the world. And also I am rather driven as a person. I am a bit of a go-getter. I'm rather action-oriented. I can get rather restless. I get impatient. I bore easily. I like action. That's why I work in an emergency department. People might think that being a nurse, that's not very action oriented. But in an emergency department, there is a lot of action. You have all these crazy cases coming in. You get these sort of life and death situations more often than in other places. I am a bit of an adventurer. I can be rather sort of opinionated. I don't back down from a fight. I can be a bit of a fighter. But also I like to exchange ideas. I like to have these sort of lively discussions. I can be very strong-willed. I stand up for my cause. I don't mind what's it called, like challenging people that I don't agree with. I don't mind challenging sort of traditional ideas or conventional thinking. What else? Did I say that I tend to have a bit of a temper? I do. But so that's like these two knights here. I can relate rather strongly to them too. But there are also things here that I might not really feel are me. We also have the Queen of Pentacles, who I also relate to in some ways. I tend to be rather practical and use common sense. My home is very important to me. It's important to have a nice home. My family is very important to me. I am very sensual in the way that I use my physical senses a lot. I derive a lot of pleasure from my physical senses. And I love nature. I get my inspiration from nature. I find nature very healing, very comforting. And also, if I have nature around me, if I'm in nature, I have the plants around me, the animals, especially if I'm also close to the sea and sort of the woods and all, I tend to not necessarily need the company of humans. I enjoy the company of humans, but I don't really need it to feel good. I'm quite fine being alone out in the woods, so to speak. But I'm not as grounded as the Queen of Pentacles. I can also relate to this lady, the Queen of Cups. In some respects, I am this rather I can be rather sensitive. I have these very deep feelings. I'm creative and artistic and use my imagination. That I'm spiritual. What else? Maybe that was it. But I'm also normally very compassionate. But I'm not as emotionally stable, and probably also not as emotionally mature as the Queen of Cups. Perhaps it's time for a bit of chocolate. Cheers. Nothing better. And then we have this guy, and I included him because I can be very stubborn. That's something that people have been telling me since I was a child. Oh, you're so stubborn. But then on a bit further thinking, I also realized that the other cards that I've included, they're all to do with the things that I'm aware of, personality traits that I'm aware of, obviously. But we also all have all these the blind spots, right? And they can also be related, of course, to the court cards. And so this guy here is also included because this is one of my blind spots. My partner once said to me that I'm not as liberal as I might think. I'm rather conservative in some senses. And at first I was like, what the fuck? Of course I'm liberal. But then I thought about it a bit more, and I realized that I am generally rather liberally minded. But there are some areas where I actually have a bit more conservative tendencies, and sometimes I might even be a bit more conservative than I would like to admit to myself. So we also have all these blind spots that we can have a conversation about with the court cards. But now finally we're getting to the card that I eventually decided was the one that was most characteristic of me as a person as a whole. That was most like my own personality, and it's this lady here. This is the Queen of Swords. I think most of you will recognize her. And the Queen of Swords, I see her as someone who she is very much relying on her intellect, on her intelligence, on this kind of mental clarity. That's what she's using to make sense of the world. And that's how she solves problems. That's how she reaches her goals. And that is sort of basically how she navigates life, is is by thinking, basically. But being a queen, she is also able to apply that, or that intellectual, or that intellect, in a sort of balanced and sensible and practical and reasonable way. So she's not just intelligent, she's also wise. She is also very determined, she's very strong-willed, she is good at communication, she communicates very clearly, she is to the point, she's direct, she is honest, she is good with words, she might be a good writer, she doesn't necessarily enjoy chit chat and superficial talk, but she enjoys these intellectual exchanges. She likes to exchange ideas, for instance, and she likes this sort of respectful debates and discussions and dialogues. She's also very big on truth. She's always looking for the truth, and she has this sort of discernment. I think it's called discernment in English. She can think independently, so she can get to a sort of a unbiased judgment. She doesn't like all these sort of half-truths, all these games. She likes to cut to the core. She doesn't like, for instance, all these myths that are going around in social media. She doesn't like fluff. She doesn't like pseudoscience. She likes like good, solid research. She is someone who has clear boundaries. She's good at communicating those boundaries. She knows her own boundaries, and she has that kind of integrity where she's able to say no. She doesn't allow people bullying her into doing things she doesn't want to. She doesn't let others use her. She is capable of standing up for herself and standing up for the rights of others. What else? She's not particularly emotional. She thinks about the hows and the whys and the wheres and the whats. She's rational. She uses logic rather than intuition and emotion and like the gut feeling. Being a queen, she is a leader. People tend to respect her and follow her lead because of that mental clarity, because of her good communication skills, because of that sort of discernment. She might be a skilled politician, but she is more focused on the results and getting things done rather than the sort of like the rules of diplomacy and being popular. One of my books, I don't remember which one, but one of them said that she might be someone who is in opposition to the traditional ruling elite, which really appealed to me because of my own sort of my own values. I'm a bit of a rebel. It doesn't look like, but you know, that's how it is. It also said that she might be an informal leader. She might be that kind of person who, even though they are not formally the leader, even though they're not the official leader, they tend to become that person that people look to for direction, that people follow. So she might not be the boss, but the one who actually sort of is like a bit like behind the scenes, and the one who sort of actually has the power, even though you might not really see it at first. She could be that kind of person who the formal leader needs to get on board, because everyone else is going to look to her for direction. So if she's not on board with whatever it is that the formal leader wants to do, they're going to find their leadership very inefficient. She's that kind of person. She can come up as a bit bitchy, or a bit of an ice queen. She is very clear on why she does what she does. She is very clear on why she has the opinions she has, but she might not necessarily have any interest in spending time and energy in explaining to others and defending her actions to others. So she might not take criticism very well. She might not like to be questioned, and that could be one of those instances where the sort of bitchiness comes out, I guess. And you have to remember that we talk about the suit of swords as the intellect and mental clarity and all that, but this is a lady with a weapon, and she's going to use that weapon if she finds that necessary. She's going to fight for the things that are important. She's not going to hesitate to fight for the things that matter to her. She might, or she probably will, choose to fight with her wit and with words rather than an actual sword, because as we all know, the pen is mightier than the sword anyway. She is also able to like choose her battles wisely, unlike this guy, you know, but she will fight if it becomes necessary. And she might what's it called, she might have a tendency to feel that the ends justify the means. She might also resort to master suppression techniques, I think is what it's called in English, if she feels that is going to give her the edge that she needs to defend the things that are important to her. Also, I've been playing around with this. I don't normally do reversals, but I thought it was interesting. Now I've sort of decided that I am the Queen of Swords. It was interesting to see in what way the Queen of Swords in reverse manifests in my personality, in my life. And what I realized was that the reverse Queen of Swords, she comes out when I'm under pressure, when I'm stressed out, when I'm not quite balanced, when I get angry, because I do get angry sometimes. I am, as I said before, rather hot-tempered. And she can do that in different ways. Either she she gets overly emotional, and all that rationality and logic just goes away, and she reacts and even overreacts with very strong emotions, or she keeps those strong emotions pent up and ruminates, and those get those sort of negative thoughts, and the vicious circle with negative feelings and depression. Or, and especially when she gets angry, or when I get angry, she tends to forget that other people have feelings, and that those feelings can get hurt. Especially she tends, or I tend to act in a way that is not compassionate. Like I can get rather mean. Like I don't really, it doesn't occur to me that what I do might hurt others. And then of course when I realize, I feel very bad about it and I regret it. But when I'm here, I tend to be rather uncompassionate. I tend to be that ice cold, unfeeling bitch. Another thing that I've been sort of thinking about for this video, which is, I have to finish it before it gets cold, is that I also think that the Queen of Swords is how what others would choose if they were asked to decide which court card I am. This would probably be it. I think these are the personality traits that are most visible outwardly. And I've noticed this in how people respond to me, in what they say to me. The praise I get most commonly is that I'm intelligent, believe it or not, but it is. I also notice that people, they come to me for my opinions. They come to me with the problems, but not any kind of problems. They don't come to me with these sort of emotional problems, but rather they come to me when it's not just about talking and having someone listen, but when they actually want a solution. They want someone to be able to look at the whole thing objectively, someone who's able to analyze it and think it through and come up with a solution. They want that kind of advice. I'm told quite a lot that I would probably make a good politician, and my grandma in particular insists that I should become a politician. And also the leadership thing, I don't see myself as a leader, and especially I don't like to have that sort of formal leadership. I'm sometimes put in that situation at work and I just cringe at it. And when I talk about that, people are usually surprised because they see me as a natural leader type. They perceive me as someone who is comfortable in that leader role, and someone who even takes on that role. And that is not something that I'm aware that I'm doing, I think is because I tend to take initiative. If I see that someone needs to take the initiative and no one does, then I do it. And I guess people will see that as someone taking on the leader role. Even though I don't really want to be that leader. Another thing that I've noticed is that people tend to come to me for feedback, especially like professionally. I have colleagues, they come to me for feedback on how they're doing in the job, like if they feel like they are struggling at work and that they're worried that they might not be doing a good enough job, and they feel like they're not really getting any proper feedback from the boss. They come to me and ask me, and I think it's a great honor, because that means that they trust my judgment. They trust me to be honest and tell the truth. They also trust me to give them useful feedback. They trust me to not be mean and just say you suck. They trust me to give them something that they can use, that is constructive, and they trust me to give them advice. And I think they also trust me to not tell everyone else. They trust me to keep it to myself, because this can be rather sensitive and personal. This is not something you want everyone at work gossiping about. And trust me, my workplace, there is a lot of gossip. Oh my god, there are such gossips. And I also think that shows that they think of me as someone who is rather perceptive, someone who sees what's going on, but who's also able to look at that at an objective way and sort of analyze that, and sort of draw conclusions that can then be translated to feedback for them. So I think people around me too would see me as the Queen of Swords. I'm also rather infamous for my hot temper, by the way. So I when I was younger, I would have been more like this, but I grew up to become a queen. And anyway, it makes sense that I should be the Queen of Swords, because if you look at the elemental correspondences of this, and if you look at the astrological things, I made a video recently, I'm not sure if you've seen it, about astrology. I only just discovered that astrology was real. I used to not believe it, but I do now. But anyway, and I am, or the Queen of Swords would be, let me think, like the water of air, right? And my sun sign is Scorpio, so that's the water, but I'm also an Aquarius moon and Libra ascending, so I have all this air, and the Libra is all over my birth chart, so I am a very airy person. So water and air, in that sense, it would also, make sense that I am a Queen of Swords. So I'm quite happy with that conclusion. As I said, this was a very fun and challenging tag. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it wasn't too long and too rambly and too boring. If you did like this and want to see more of my videos, please subscribe. If you have questions for me, don't hesitate to ask. If there's something you want me to make a video on, please tell me and I will have a look at it. There is a video that is a viewer request coming up. I'm not sure exactly when I will have time to do it, but someone requested a subject for me to talk about, and I will. Trust me. Anyway, thank you for watching.